Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchedoye olahuri samyao samputoshe. Wu shang shen shen wei miao fa bai qian wan jie nan zhao yu. Wo jin jian wan de shou chi yuan jie ru lai zhen shi yi. The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in hundreds of thousands of millions of eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. This is the 24th of May, and we're here at the Berkeley Monastery looking into the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Flower Garland Sutra. And it's a whole new level of courtesy that has happened to us in the world, which requires us all to learn how to turn off our cell phones. It's you gotta learn to do it. Some of us are technological phobes. We don't like to deal with that stuff, but we still own cell phone. So mine has a little switch. You just go, and it just buzzes. So if it rings, nobody knows except me. I'll feel the buzz, right? You don't have to be embarrassed when your phone rings in public. So that should be standard. Grandchildren teach grandma how to turn her phone off. Show her and then drill her so that she can do it like 9 times out of 9, you know. So that's a good thing to do. All right. We are looking into this text and delighted to see, I understand that somebody is having a birthday next week, and the celebration, the deal was, wanted to celebrate it this week, and he brought his family for the birthday present. Yes! Have we penetrated the culture or what? That is great when, a sutra lecture is a prize. Usually it's a punishment, you know. If you're bad, you got to go listen. No, like Michael's turned it around, so it's like good stuff. All right, we like that. All right, now the lecture better be good so it's a good reward. So we're here with the Flower Garland Sutra, and usually we start by chanting the name of the sutra and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So it's right there on the cover, but it's the Chinese part. So if you look on your cover of your text, you see that one right there? Last 2 lines down there, we're going to do that in Chinese because we are still working on the English to get it right. So it's like an invocation. By chanting that name, we bring their presence into the hall. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Na Mo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Na Mo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Namo Ta Fang Guang Po Hua Yan Jin Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa. Okay, let me give you the 5-minute intro so we get a sense of what's going on, especially people who are here for the first time. Here's what's happening. By the way, if anybody would like to hear a Vietnamese translation, we have a simultaneous Vietnamese translation happening up in the balcony. So you're welcome to go up and listen in Vietnamese as well. And if you're hearing a voice, that's what we have. We've got a simultaneous translation. Once upon a time, we had consecutive Mandarin translations, but we kind of looked around and figured that the demand for the Mandarin translation was kind of not all that pressing. There were one or two folks occasionally who 听不懂英文，要听普通话, so we translated for them. But at this point, we decided to save that. When you translate consecutively, you cut your time in half. So the rest of the lectures that we give, like up at City of 10,000 Buddhas, for example, those are completely bilingual. 5 minutes of English, switch over, 5 minutes of Mandarin. 5 minutes of English, 5 minutes of Mandarin. So here in Berkeley, we decided that we would go for intensive English. But should there be folks who really want to hear Mandarin, and there's enough of a number, then we'll recruit our Mandarin translators to come and provide a Mandarin translation. So here's the background. Here's what we're doing. People, by and large, when they first hear about the Buddha, have a variety of ideas about what that means. Mostly it has to do with peacefulness. People call the Buddha the peace guy. Either that or they think fat, right? Fat Buddha, laughing Buddha, because you've seen that image. Ha ha, big earlobe, sometimes with kids climbing over him. Sometimes with big money. You see the fat Buddha with coins, Chinese coins. So people have funny first impressions. For me, growing up, Buddha, the first impression was meditation. The Buddha was sitting still like that. So he was a meditator. That was my first impression. And probably you have to look for a while to get the idea that the Buddha also involves texts, books. The Buddha spoke. He taught for 49 years of his life. This is a historical individual. The Buddha of our history period. Lived roughly in the 6th century before the Common Era, BCE. So the same time as Confucius, interestingly. Same time as Plato, Socrates. Same time as Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher. So that was the axial age when there were great souls walking around talking. And one thing about Asia is because the cultures of India and China go back in a straight line, continuous to the present day, back and forward. So there's a historical memory. And we recall what those teachers said. And that's the case. And the Buddha talked for 49 years, and what he said was preserved. Now, interestingly enough, this is real interesting if you think about it. The Buddha instructed that the words he said should not be written down. They should be remembered and passed on orally, mouth to ear, not eye to page. Now, there are interesting reasons for that if you think about it, because how many people 600 years before the Common Era, before Christ, BC, right now it's BCE, before the Common Era. How many people back then could read? Well, if before you could read, you had to get up out of the farmer's field and go sit in a classroom and learn language. Who had the time to do that? A very, 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 very small percentage, maybe 5% of the population, could afford to not grow crops to go study. So in other words, once you wrote it down, what you wrote down was the possession of a very small minority of people, mostly priests, rich people, aristocrats, aristocracy, right? The princes and the kings. The Buddha said, I'm telling you what I'm telling you, not for 5% of the population. This is called Dharma. It's like medicine. Who's sick? Everybody. Who's asleep? Everybody. This is to wake people up. That's why I'm teaching this. So let's not write it down to increase everybody's access to it so people can find it. You don't have to read it, you just have to listen when somebody explains it for you. So, very radical statement right there. Just think about what that implies. The Buddha was a populist. He was a doctor. He said, what I'm telling you is good for people who are sick of being sick and want to get well, they want to wake up, they want to ultimately get liberated from all kinds of suffering. So, let's keep it in the common tongue. Let's keep it in the vernacular. So, if the Buddha were alive right now and really wanted to communicate to the largest number of people, what would he be? He'd probably be a spoken word poet. He'd probably be a rap artist. Probably do hip hop. Because why? Communicates to the largest number of people quickly. You know, he would put it in a form that people actually are listening to already. That's the implication of what he said. Don't write it down. Put it in, keep it in the language that people actually speak. So that's really interesting. And what religions and churches depend upon is structures and institutions. Not that you want to be critical about that. What do you do when 10 people show up? Well, you better get seats. You better get a roof. You better get a toilet. You better get a kitchen. What if you got 100 people? What if you have 1,000 people? You got to have facilities. You have to have somebody who keeps the lights on at night and turns them out in the day, right? You got to have a structure, a building, a church, a religion, right? The Buddha didn't start a religion. He really didn't. He didn't start institutions. He was much more radically democratic. He wanted people to hear the Dharma as it was spoken. So, what did our teacher do? Our teacher, Master Hsuan Hua, whose picture is right here, this is the monk who founded our order here, the Dharma Realm Buddhist Association. He came from Manchuria to America in 1962. He made it very important that we find out what the Buddha actually said. So he spent 90 minutes of every single night that he was physically in the country explaining these texts. I was a meditator. I thought I was a meditator. I wanted to become a meditator, so I came to meditate. Before I knew it, I was sitting like we're doing tonight in a room with a lot of other people listening to this teacher talk about a book that was first spoken 2,600 years ago. Like, how strange was that? Right? I had no idea that that's what I would be doing part of every day of my life as a Buddhist. So, only because our teacher made it important that we open these texts, not only open them, but listen to them, not only listen to them, but translate them, right? Not only translate them, but put them to work in our lives. Bring them into our thinking and our behavior and our responses to the world around us. So that's what we're doing here tonight, okay? So it's like interesting, right? People think Buddhism, books, kind of self-help books like, you know, human realization, human development, and personal development, kind kind of like that New Agey stuff, right? Go, well, maybe, but not this. This is different. This is much more like a blueprint for the wiring of your head and your heart. Buddhist sutras are much more like a map to the darkest corners of your psyche and your soul. They're much more like a flashlight in the dark when you got trouble and you need to find your way out of a dangerous situation. It's a flashlight. So, blueprint, map, flashlight, kind of like the medicine cabinet where you go when you're feeling really, really bad and you want to get relief. Buddhist sutras. That's how our teacher presented them to us. Funny, huh? Not just a book. Certainly not like a feel-good self-help manual from New Age self-realization. You could do it that way. That's not the essential purpose of these texts. So, that's what we're doing. That's what we're looking at. And we, younger types who followed our teacher, showed up, and what was he looking for? He was looking for language skills. He was looking for people who could hear his Putonghua, his Mandarin Chinese, and go, oh, 师父说这个意思就是说 Master Hua said this means, no, the Shifu would say, no, this, what do you think it means? And I want to point something out here. There was a tradition in China, because by the time Buddhism got to China, the church side was really strong. The institutions were huge. There were giant monasteries with thousands of people in them all over China. There were monasteries in the imperial palace. The emperor had his own Buddha hall. He had his own Chan hall. He had his own hand-picked monks and nuns, right? And it was glorious. It was golden. It was shining, expensive. So the very thing that the Buddha did not want to happen, happened, right? It got put into language. It got stuck on a shelf. It got institutionalized into large buildings with large numbers of people. And so what happened to these texts was, because we're moving out of India into China now. When it got to China, the people who were drawn to Buddhism were who? The educated minority, the 5% who could read, the scholars, the aristocrats, the noblemen and women. And when people wanted to find out what was in the sutras, some of the best minds in China, some of the most brilliant Chinese thinkers had already taken these texts and turned them into like standard commentaries. Pretty much locked it up. So if you, for example, right now, this is a modern example. Suppose you were a gifted healer. Maybe some of you know somebody who's got healing hands. They just have that gift. They can really find out what's wrong with you and very quickly make you feel better, right? If that person says, I'm a doctor, you have an entire medical establishment that says, oh, show me your degree. Now, where did you graduate from? You did your internship where? What do you specialize in? And did you pass your medical boards? Have you taken the Hippocratic Oath? Show me your diploma. And they will definitely shut you down if you don't have the standard qualification. Now, that's a good thing, mind you. But in China, around lecturing on sutras, it got to be that way. If you wanted to lecture on a sutra, there was an orthodox way to do it. And if you wanted to do it differently, no, you were pretty much disqualified from lecturing on text. The result was what? People stopped lecturing on text. It got to be so stiff and so dull and so formulaic and so standard that it just became an institution all by itself. So the result was people pretty much didn't touch these. Where did they go? They went there and they went there. 100 volumes, 150 volumes of the canon, right? All in identical bindings, beautifully published, beautifully printed, edited down, and not a fingerprint on them, right? Untouched. Nobody opens them up. Just too heavy, too much, too formal, right? So here's our teacher who says that's exactly what the Buddha was trying to prevent. He said, we're going to open these texts, find out what the Buddha wanted us to know, let him speak in the language of the people in the West, which in this case is English, but then we translated it further, and I'm going to ask you if you understand what he said when we're done. So he did that. After he lectured on the text for 90 minutes, actually go like 70 minutes, Shifu would go, he would say, who has any questions? If you don't ask me questions, I'm going to ask you questions. So you better ask me first. That way you get your choice. Otherwise, you better answer, Were you listening? So we would go, Shifu, what does it mean? I don't understand this. And he would go, oh, what do you think? And we go, well, it seemed kind of like he'd say, not bad, but did you think of it this way? And they go, oh, no, so, right? He would be, this is called the Socratic method. Socrates was always asking his disciples, now, isn't it true that this, yes, this is true, teacher. Well, if that's true, then wouldn't you also infer that this is true? Yeah, well, that's actually true, yeah. So, so now you see that this is because this inferred that. You're smarter than you knew, said the teacher. And you go, yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. So, good teacher, right? Good text. And once we did this, once we opened these up and put our fingerprints on them and thought about them and then ran them, we point to our brains where we think. And the Chinese point to the heart. They go, here. The seat of thought, isn't it? Once we ran them through that space, it was like suddenly they started to go pum pum, pum pum, pum pum, pum pum. A heartbeat opened up, and they went, and they started to breathe, and they started to take on dimension. You're looking through the text into your life. They started to shine. They became like a mirror. Oh, I'm looking at my face, and guess what? Not very pretty. And yet behind it is a sense of something that it can become. Something wholesome, something grounded, rooted in principle, and entirely human at its best. Humanity at its best is found in these texts. Who knew? I mean, there's an opportunity to say, who knew, right? It's been there all along, but nobody took the time to ask the Buddha to speak in the local dialect. In this case, English. So that was our teacher's gift, one of his gifts to us. And that's why tonight, here on a Saturday, we're doing the same thing. We're opening these up and looking at them. And there's another whole side to these, which is quite wonderful, which is the Buddha spoke them, but in an amazing kind of, maybe mysterious kind of way. The Buddha would probably say that the sutras came through him, not from him. That is to say, what the sutras contain, these texts, they contain dharma, capital D-H-A-R-M-A. And dharma is a word that has lots of meanings, but we have a really good old-fashioned English word that covers it, and it's the word lore, L-O-R-E. Lore is kind of like it contains aspects of the past, that is to say, something that's been around but needs to be carried forward. Somebody has to bring this lore. They have to tell ancient, they always say ancient lore, right? And it includes wisdom, and it includes knowledge, and it includes methods, techniques, directions, insights, experiences, and it carries stories. The best stories. Stories of people who do things. So-and-so did this and this happened. Can you relate? You know, we hear these stories and we go, ding, ding, ding. I'm hearing that like back here somewhere. It's like, oh, why have I heard that before? Yeah, it's kind of almost forgotten, but not, because maybe you all have that same experience, but I have that experience all the time. You hear these texts and it's like, it's more that you remember them rather than you meet them for the first time. So the Buddha, because he was a person who took the covers off his mind, right? That's essentially what we say, and that's tonight's text we're going to find out. The Buddha's enlightenment, that's a word, his awakening, happened because he took the covers off something that was already awake but got covered up. That was what he was doing during his 6 years of meditation in the forest. When he uncovered his mind, what he discovered, what he uncovered was that in his mind, and mind/nature, kind of interchangeable words, in his nature was this Dharma, all there, already. He didn't have to add a word. It was there waiting to be discovered. And he said, everybody's got it. It's not his. It's not mine, said the Buddha. It's not my possession. I didn't invent it. I didn't create it. I saw it and I'm sharing it. Here it is. Help yourself. So that's interesting, because that's what's in these texts. And it's lore. It's ancient wisdom brought modern. And as soon as it's like, you don't have to get completely awake like the Buddha in order to have it in order to access it. Every bit of covering that we remove from our mind yields that much insight, that much understanding. One piece of uncovering yields one piece of insight. 100 pieces of uncovering yields 100 pieces of insight. Okay, so it comes from inside. All right. Tonight, this would not be the audience to go here, but there are groups that take part here in the Institute for World Religions who would say, oh, so if you look at the prophets of the Hebrew Scriptures, suppose you look at other religious traditions, did what you just described correspond to revelation? Okay, Moses went up onto a mountaintop and received from God fundamental teachings, which he then brought down to humanity and became one of the standards of Judaism and all of Christianity, 10 Commandments, among other things, right? And other prophets had truths revealed to them. Different process of a voice outside of, let's say, Moses, giving him wisdom that he then brings down, and here it is. So, as I say, we're not doing comparative religion. That's the kind of thing that would be interesting if you were, Baptist ministers or Catholic clergy. We could talk about that. So the direction of the teaching is different in this model, which is what? It comes from inside. Right? the Buddha wakes up to something inside. He takes the covers off his mind. He says, fundamentally, I had all that stuff. I knew all that, but I had to sit still. I had to get rid of ignorance, attachment, selfishness, craving, anger, delusion, excessive emotion, ideas and opinions that I held on to, prejudices, biases, and wrong views. Had to take all that stuff bit by bit by bit through my meditation and my practice and trade it in for wisdom, virtue, blessings, generosity, kindness, compassion, morality, patience, wisdom. And look what came up. All this Dharma. So it's a different process. But the Buddha said, anybody who does this work will get the same stuff. So in other words, if you buy this story, he's saying we've all got it inside. Nobody lacks this access to insight. We're kind of carrying it around hardwired, kind of like a SD card in your camera, if we want to use a mundane. Did you hear the good news? The latest news is an architect was on a ferry boat going from Vancouver Island to, it's not clear where it's going, Victoria perhaps, up in British Columbia. And the ferry boat had an accident. Oh, he was going up to like the Sunshine Coast, up near where our friend Fabrizio used to live. And the ferry boat ran aground, and his camera, he had a Panasonic point and shoot, boy oh boy, a GX something or other, and it fell in the water, and he lost it. And it had pictures of an ash scattering ceremony for his family. One of his grandparents had died, and they'd gone out in the boat to scatter ashes. He had photographs. The boat sank. He dropped his camera in a fairly deep chunk of the North Pacific and figured, well, that's it. We'll have to let those pictures go. Recently, 2 oceanographic students were diving, found this shiny object down on the floor of the ocean, brought it back up, and it was a Panasonic point and shoot that had been underwater for 2 years. And they investigated it, and it had, I can't give you the complete quotes, it had 2 phyla and 7 phyla of marine creatures living in the camera. It had become home to a bunch of little water critters, Pacific Ocean critters living in there. Little octopus and things, climbing around. So what do? They opened the camera, took out the SD card, and found all the photos intact. And the guy, the student who found him, the diver, put it on Instagram and said, "Does anybody know who this is?" And one of the friends of the architect said, "Well, that's Bill and so-and-so." Got in touch, "Hey, somebody's got your pictures on Instagram." He said, "Wow, fantastic." So they got in touch with each other. Sure enough, it was his camera. So the blog that was telling this news story says, "Boy, Panasonic better get an advertisement out pretty quick for their cameras." And the makers of the SD cards, it was not, which one was it? It was the other brand. It was the Pepsi to the Coke of SD cards. It wasn't, which one was it? I'll have to, not say, it was the other. Which one? Lexar. It was Lexar. So they better get their brand up and say, "Hey, we have a story to tell you. Or buy our cards." If saltwater can't corrode it, that's a pretty good camera, pretty good SD card. So yes. Only existing 2 million years. Did you spray the whole thing with plastic, Roberto, or wrap it in saran wrap or something? No. Did put it there. Good for you. What kind of computer? Better be a Mac. It's an Apple. Okay, that's probably it's going to be there. I expect, yeah. Good. Good for you. Good for you. Now you should put an entire set of our e-books. Our EPUBs are coming out. So you can have the Mahayana texts along with the Pali Canon there. Not that we're, taking sides, but just, you don't want the Pali Canon to be the only one they find, right? Right? No. So, good for you. That's great. Yeah, what if a giant sunspot happens and wipes out iCloud? It's all gone. So, yeah, right. So, the point of telling you that story was what? Was to say, here is like this little tiny plastic chip with a tiny imprinted circuit on it that had the guy's photos. And it fell into the salt water, and trilobites and, mollusks and stuff had climbed into the camera to live. And when they opened it up, the pictures are still there, still work fine. They were undamaged. So that's pretty stable storage. The Buddha would say, by analogy, our natures are the same. That we have storage in our nature of this Dharma. And all you have to do is uncover it, and there it is. So, that's where this comes from. Okay, that's our intro. That brings us up to speed. That's what we're doing. So, what have we got? This is the 5th out of 10 what are called grounds, 10 stages. Ground is like a place where you stand. It's a stage. It's a level. So there are 10 grounds, 10 levels in this text. And this is just one chapter out of 40 chapters in the whole text. We're close to the end of the sutra, and with the 5th ground, we are approaching the halfway point of our chapter. You can see when we get to page 63, we're done with the 5th ground. We're on 57. Now, this is really interesting because I have been away. I've been in Australia for some time. And the sutra has been opened up and explained and shared with everybody by Jin Ho Shi here at BBM, and Jin Fansher's come down from CTDB, and the nuns have come down, and they've been taking turns in explaining it very ably and taking us through. And I am really partial to this particular chapter, so I would have enjoyed doing it myself. I'm delighted that people were willing to stand in and keep it moving. But I would love to have done it because it's one of my favorites. And so we've now come to the part where verses repeat what was said before. The way the text is built is there's a prose section followed by verses that repeat the prose. So the content comes around twice. Second time it's in verses. Rhyming and metered. Bump. It's not rhyming actually, but it's metered. Bum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum. Ba-bum, ba-bum, bum, ba-bum, like that. So we get a second chance to go over some of these ideas. And what is being talked about is what's called a bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas are awakened beings. Bodhi, to wake up, sattva, a being, a person, or not necessarily even a human, but someone who is got warmth, got consciousness, got breath, and blood. That's a being. And these awakened beings are, what are they awakened to? What's an enlightened and awakened being? They're awakened to the truth that their self doesn't stop with the skin. They are not limited by their bodies. When you ask a bodhisattva, who are you? You'd probably stump him, because that's a difficult question for a bodhisattva, because he's way more than simply a body and a mind. And if somebody asks you, who are you? Chances are, depending on who you're talking to, you might say, I'm son of, I'm daughter of. You might go to your relationships. I am sister to, brother to. I am employee of. You might say, I am a graduate of. You might define yourself by your job, by your education. Some people would identify themselves by their possessions. I am the owner of that 1956 Corvette. It's got ported Venturi carburetors and torsion bar suspension, And you go, okay, cool. That's nice. I don't have one of those, 56, you said? Is that your red one? Was that the fiberglass body? So some people do that. Some people say, I was a homecoming queen in my high school. Yeah. I was runner-up. I was in the court of the homecoming queen. All right. How many were there? How many of those were there? 4, that year? Great. So some people identify themselves by their grandchildren. They pull out their pictures, relationships. All right. So all these different answers. Who am I? We have different answers. The Bodhisattva's answer would be a multiple answer. He's more than one thing, certainly. And if we're honest, we could probably be multiple answers too. Employee of, sister of, child of, parent to, teammate of. I'm a subscriber to the New York Times, I'm a Netflix watcher. What would it be? What would your identity be? This Bodhisattva now, tonight's passage, we're on page 57. Can we go to our text right now? Look at what he is saying. He's going deep. When he looks at that answer, who am I? He goes deep. He goes way past the surface. Okay? We're on the bottom. Last stanza, down on the bottom. And I'm going to give you, first I'm going to put my palms together, just out of respect for these passages, and I'll chant it. We're going to give a melody to this line. And then if you're invited to chant back, then we're going to do the English in unison. Here we go. Guanju Yowei Shen Hoji. Your turn. Guanju Yowei Shen Hoji. Wu Ming Hei An Ai Chan Fu. Ai Chan Fu. Liu Zhuan Chi Hui Ku Ju Zhong. Liu Zhuan Chi Hui Ku Ju Zhong. Wu wo wu ren wu shou ming. Wu wo wu ren wu shou ming. Let's read together in English in unison. Here we go. He observes all conditioned dharmas which are bounded by before and afterwards, as shackled by the fetters of love and the darkness of ignorance. They haphazardly revolve in the mass of suffering. He sees them as devoid of self, of others, and of lifespan. All right. So, one thing to say, for folks who are joining us for maybe the first time, this is not the beginning, all right? This is not beginner's Dharma. We are deep into it. This is pretty deep stuff. So, if you bounce off it, be patient. Understand the text has been going on for some time, and we all were beginners at one point. But this part of the text is not a beginner's part, so don't be discouraged if this seems really, really deep, because it is. It's really deep, and it's built up progressively from people who started shallow and are now heading deep. It gets deeper. It gets deeper as we go. So, guan zhu you wei, xian hou ji. Guan is the verb he looks at. This bodhisattva observes. He, she pays attention to zhu you wei, all things. Every having conditions. That's what the Chinese says word by word. He, she contemplates all things that are made. You could also do it that way. Everything that is made, everything that is created. Bodhisattva looks at it. Okay, stop. What does that mean? It means that if we were the Bodhisattva, we have taken a step back. We have employed our wide-angle lens. We're not looking at the details. We're looking at the big, big, big picture. Okay? So, what would we call a person like that? We'd say philosopher. Right? Oh, you're taking a philosophical view. Person likes to kind of think deeply. Those are the ways we would describe this person. It says, the Bodhisattva looks at everything. Because why? Zhu you wei means everything in the world that is created, which is pretty much everything. So there is a part of the Buddha's teaching that is profoundly scientific, right? He's looking at stuff. He's looking deeply at stuff. Wood. This is ebony. Really hard, heavy. This is like a, you can hear it. This is heavy. This is ebony. This is like, that's really hard. But it was organic. If you look at it, you can see where the sap went through the wood, through the grain of the wood. Burn it, put fire to it, it'll burn and leave ash and heat as it transforms, right? So this is a hydrocarbon, hydrogen and carbon. It's an organic thing. Used to be a living thing. It remembers when it was a tree, right? What was it like as a tree? Pretty hard and vibrant, right? That's why ebony makes good wooden fishes, because they're so hard. So there we go. Here's another one. Different composition, but apply fire to this and it turns liquid, right? This is metal. That's plant kingdom, the mineral kingdom. So this too, right? These are all conditioned things. The Bodhisattva is going, whoa, yeah, pottery. Wow, this once was sand or clay, earth, another part of the mineral kingdom. So he's doing that. This one breaks down more quickly, plant kingdom, right? Animal kingdom. So the Bodhisattva looks at all things that are created, and what does he say? Wei xian hou ji. He understands that they all came into being and are going to go away. So that's one of the conclusions that the Bodhisattva makes. He says, everything comes and goes. That's profound. Or some people might say sad, right? Oh, you Buddhists, can't you be happy? Right? It's all suffering all the time. Lighten up, you Buddhists. Well, yeah, but what about when somebody goes? Then you're going to tell me to lighten up? You're the one who's sobbing, So the Buddha's one of the parts of the Buddha's wisdom is to recognize what's called impermanence. Stuff doesn't last. That's the way things are, right? Who said it best? Joni Mitchell said it best, right? Everything comes and goes. Brought on by presidents and styles of clothes. No, she didn't say that. So Joni Mitchell is like a profound thinker. So everything comes and goes. The truth of impermanence, right? Impermanence. So the Bodhisattva looks at all things made up of other things and how they come and go. So far so good? You still with me? All right? What's next? Wu Ming, Hei An, Ai, Chan Fu. Okay, another observation from the Buddha. He says they are, Wu Ming, lack of light. There's no light. Hei An, They are bound in the dark. Furthermore, I, Chanfu, love bound up and tied up. What in the world does that have to do with the first sentence? Okay, he's further defining all the things he's looking at. So he looks at all things. He says, right, everything that's made of stuff has a birth and a death. Including, right, you apply that, you think, yeah, this too, right? This is coming and going. So everything that is created comes into being and passes on, and while it's here, what do we do with it? We love it or hate it. We attach to it. We stick to the things that we encounter, including what? Obviously our own bodies, right? Well, you say, that's the carrier of my life. Who wouldn't? Yeah, natural. There's no judgment here. The Buddha is scientifically, empirically, very clinically just telling it like it is. He says, right, there is wuming. Wuming means, the technical term is ignorance. And it's not a slam. This is not a slander. The Buddha is saying, no light. We don't see things the way they are. We don't see our bodies the way we are, the way they really are, right? We don't see our boyfriends the way they really are. We don't see our moms the way they really are. We don't see our bosses, right? Our relationships are bound up in projections, in attachments, in habits, in emotional needs, all of these things that get in the way of seeing things as they are, cover us. Therefore, in the darkness, we love, and implied in that is also hate, or the negative side of attachment. We love things or we despise them, right? But what the Buddha is saying is emotion arises. And as a result, we're hanging on to things in the midst of stuff that comes and goes. What's the result of hanging on to stuff that's leaving? Pain, right? You don't want it to go, and it goes. Okay, and the older we get, man, whew, my mom lives in a seniors community in Toledo. It's a very nice place. It's called the Woodlands, and there's 60 units there. And the turnover is pretty constant, you know, and I go and sit and have lunch with some of my mother's neighbors in the Woodlands. And what do they talk about? Funerals. Whose funeral they went to. And you can see them. And they're the youngest, I think, is probably 78 or so. The oldest is over 100. And when you get that age, it's just, you just lose. They just start going, right? And it's not, they can't even be shocked by it. You know, younger people, it's like, oh, really? Oh. You see these elders, they're old trees in the forest, you know, and the trees are falling. And you just say, wow. Somebody says, you spend all your time going to funerals when you get my age. You know, it's true. And if they allowed themselves to hurt every time, it would be nothing but sadness. Their lives would be so sad. The best of them develop, the best of us, you know, when we get that age, develop an attitude, an outlook that allows this to happen. Otherwise, why? Can't stand it. Just to see all your friends die. To not die first, right? To be one of the last ones left as they all go. It's like, how do you now, if you explain that to a 12-year-old, not real, makes no sense. Who cares? Nah, there's no reality. When you add 70 years to 12, suddenly you realize, not suddenly, slowly, you realize, man, it's coming. It's really coming. So, do you want to get there prepared, or you want to just, pull the bandage off hair by hair? What? Oh, rip. Different ways to approach it. Wu Ming Heian Ai Chan Fu. He sees that all conditioned dharmas, which are bounded by before and afterwards, which come and go, are tied up, shackled by. We don't say shackles anymore. We say tied to, attached to the things that stick us to them, love and ignorance. So let's translate this into real language. The Bodhisattva looks at how everything comes and goes, and because we love it, because we're bound in the dark, we love and hate all the stuff that crosses our path. The hate stuff is as hard as the love stuff. Can't get rid of it. Just hate your job, hate your government. I have a perfect illustration. Oh boy. When you know you're going to be explaining a principle, you kind of put out your radar for illustrations because you want it to make sense. Sitting at the lunch table this noon, and hearing a ding, news story. So I topped into AP. And now, we don't do politics from this seat. I want you all to be clear about that. You just be very aware that we don't do politics. Turn off the cameras, shut down the microphones. NSA, if you're listening, I'll say it in Mandarin. Oh, you have a Mandarin translator? All right, well. Arabic? Yeah, oh, you got one of them too. Okay. I don't speak Arabic. All right. Vietnamese, they probably have a Vietnamese. So, what happened? The House of Representatives, our elected congressmen who are there in Washington representing the best interests of the nation, protecting us and defending the Constitution of the United States, has passed a bill with only 4 Republicans not voting, and 4 Democrats voted, to, fasten your seatbelts, forbid the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, from allocating any money whatsoever to investigate the impact of global warming. A report that the United States government issued. Get that? So, why? What is their reason? Their reason is because the report of global warming was research funded by those politicians in the White House who are pushing their democratic agenda on an unwilling American populace. So the House voted the government, the Defense Department, may not investigate, may not fund any Defense Department research into the impact of global warming. Now, there are 30,000 employees in the Pentagon itself. It's the largest institution in the entire world, is the U.S. Defense Department, our military. And the military themselves, the Pentagon, has already published research into how to mitigate the impact of global warming on our thousands of military bases around the world. Why? Because we'll be more effective if we know that the water's rising, that the temperatures are going up, that we need to air condition places because, and so the Republicans have named global warming a political agenda item of the Obama White House, and therefore we don't fund it. And you go, Wu Ming Hei An Ai Chan Fu. Right? Ignorance. Global warming is not happening according to the Republican House of Representatives. It's a political ploy. It's invented by the Obama administration, and we're better off as a nation by ignoring science, and you just want to weep, you know. Now, we don't do politics. You can turn the cameras back on. We're going to talk about Buddhism, right? Barbara Lee, stand up and defend us. Oh, man, oh, man. So, now, if none of that made sense to you, you're probably better off. I don't want to even try to go there, because I can feel my temperature rising. I think I'm flushing a little bit of that. Yeah. Vote the rascals out. Didn't say which rascals, mind you, but vote the rascals out. Boy, that is called the darkness of ignorance. You know, global warming isn't happening. It's a political plot. The planet's gotten warm before, not human caused. So NASA, bless their hearts, another government fund. Is NASA private money? No, it's government funded, right? Yeah. NASA just 3 weeks ago released their definitive report that we have passed the doomsday clock. It used to count down to the time when climate change was not going to go back. There was no time left to even if we scrambled, that we couldn't stop the melting of the ice caps. The South Pole was where they were paying attention. The South Pole is now melting. It's too late. And their projections are how much water by what date will flood Miami-Dade County, right? If you have relatives in Miami-Dade County, find that report and let them read it. You can't say move, because they'll, depending on their politics, they'll blame you for the problem, you know. But you just say, I heard something about the water's rising. You don't want to be here. Forget New Orleans. Forget the city by the bay. Let's see, 4th Street, will it be flooded? Brennan's seafood restaurant, Tion's tea shop. How far will the water rise in the San Francisco Bay? So you go, whoa. You've seen them, they even had maps. NASA drew maps, and they showed the new landscape, the new coastline. After 10 feet of water, 12 feet of water by the year 2020, by the year 2050, and it's like, my goodness. That's not the Obama White House trying to hurt America, you know. That's what we've done, you know. So, there you go. All right. No irony in that. I got to get all the sarcasm out of my voice. It doesn't help my impact of what I'm saying, but you just go, come on, you guys. I think there's a lot of fear there. It's denial. It can't be happening. You know? How could we be so stupid as to foul our own nest? So we only did 2 lines so far. Let's do a 3rd line. What do you say? Let's live dangerously. Let's do a 3rd line here. Okay. What's the sutra going to tell us? Look where it got us so far, right? It got us depressed. Blame the Buddha. Okay, here we go. 流转迟回苦剧中. What? Those conditioned things, 流转, turn and flow. 迟回, they come back. They bump around 苦剧中, and they bring with them all kinds of suffering. Now, is it the fault of the things, or is it our attachment to them? Well, the answer is, it's our attachment to them. If you look at a forest. I have been living in a forest. I've spent since January 1st, living in a rainforest in a place called Benogan, also known as Mudjaraba, right at the border of the 2 little towns. Mudjaraba Forest. And we're about 7 miles from the coast. Southeastern Queensland, right where Queensland meets New South Wales. And the trees all get along. And they always have. Forests are harmonious places, or they change, right? If they're not in harmony, they change so that they become in harmony, because why? They survive that way. There's a natural progression. And when you meditate, you're aware of how the sun rises like this. The sun goes like, and you can notice the shadows growing, and and the light winks off the leaves at a certain point, and you're feeling a little warmer, and the chill goes away, and oh, look, the sun is, and then you keep sitting, you keep watching, and then, it's like that, and it's done that forever. And that's actually not happening. What's happening is we're doing this, only it's imperceptible to us. And gravity is holding us on this spinning orb. The sun is steady, we're turning under it, which is a whole different perspective. But that's going on. And the trees and the grasses and the water and the critters all adjust, or they don't last, right? What doesn't adapt and harmonize perishes. Guess who's next? Are we adapting or are we perishing? We're perishing. And the earth isn't going to hold us because we didn't adapt. We tried to break it. We tried to force it. For example, click, night becomes day. Right? What have we got now? Man, here's one. Here's how strange humanity is. Take these away from us. I want you all voluntarily to leave your cell phone on that pew as you leave the Buddha hall, right? We're not going to do it, right? These, within 10 years, have become more important than the planet. And if every person on the planet had an iPhone, had a Samsung Galaxy, we'd stop turning, because we would have consumed all of the rare earths. We would have poisoned the Foxconn factories in China, would have polluted China. These are toxic things. They're bad for us. The making of these emits so much toxic stuff. But we call it our link to Facebook, our address book, so I can talk to my mom on FaceTime. I like that. So does she. My mother loves FaceTime calls. So we excuse these devices, which are so poisonous. The stuff in there and what happens in the process is really poison. And then we throw them away, we recycle them, you have to take the elements back out. So how funny we are, right? We 流转维持苦剧中. We excuse it. Humans are the ones who have suddenly trashed the earth. The forest gets along just fine, thank you, or it doesn't survive. It adapts. We don't. We force it to adapt to us and doesn't. So there you go. How about that? The Buddha is telling us how it is. Okay? How is it? The things that he's looking at are, we're going deep, everybody, fasten your seatbelts, 无我, 无人, 无寿命. All of these things that the Bodhisattva is looking at, these conditioned dharmas, have no self. There is no other beings in them. They have nothing sentient that comes into being and passes away. Dharmas have no self in them, right? They are innocent of the stuff that gets us in trouble. So you could, I'll rent you the title of your first Buddhist book. Anybody want to give me royalties? Here it is. You ready? Dharmas aren't to blame. That's pretty catchy. That should be shoot to the top of the New York Times New Age best. Dharmas aren't to blame. Right? Think that people will get it? Will that sell? Oprah would go for that one. No, Roberto? No, you know. Don't blame dharmas. We could massage it. Don't blame dharmas. Right? Dharmas aren't to blame. It's not the fault of the chocolate. What's that? That would sell. Don't blame the chocolate. Right? Man, we look at that piece and it's radioactive. Eat me, eat me. We're going, oh, I can't eat it. I don't. Oh! Right? Oh. Like my bird. Wait till you see my kookaburra, the way he grabs the ham, right? That's the way we grab the chocolate. Oh. You know, and then, I hate it. Oh. You know. It's not the fault of the chocolate. Right? The poor chocolate. Don't blame it. It's just, I'm just chocolate. You know. We hate it. We love it. We hate it. We love it. We hate it. We love it. Because it gets us fat. Right? And we're dieting. The whole world is dieting. So, chocolate. We dream about it. Chocolate. You know? Oh, boy, do I have a chocolate story. We have some Europeans among us this evening. European natives. Now, I don't think we have any Belgians, but we have some neighbors of Belgians, some friends of Belgians, let's see. All right, here I am in Brussels. We have a Chinese lay family that's living in Brussels for the last 15 years. And I said to Mr. Zhang, I said, I think I'd like to take some chocolate home to my family. And he goes, you sure? Yeah. That, you know, Belgian chocolate. Yeah. He said, okay. I'm going, well, I thought you'd say, I know exactly. You know, and I said, what's wrong with the chocolate? He said, well, I want to respect the Dharma master, he said, so I'll do what you said. But, okay, we'll go. You know, what kind of chocolate would you like? I said, the best. He goes, okay. So he took me out to the neighborhood. We walked over, and there was a little shop, and it was set up like a jewelry store. Just the way you'd see, like, the watches and the rings and the, like on Solano, we have a little Oaks jewelry store here that's been there for 35 years. So we go in the door, and the bell rings, and there are these lighted display cases. And in each display case, there's a display with a chocolate. There, with the spotlight, chocolate. And so the proprietor comes out, and my host, Mr. Zhang, speaks either Flemish or French, I don't know which one it was, to him, and he says, oh, they know each other. He says, yes, and may I help you? And Mr. Zhang says, this is a monk from America, and he is investigating chocolate. And so he said, no, I want to buy some chocolate for my mom, good chocolate. So the proprietor goes, yes, very nice. He said, and what type of mouthfeel would you prefer? Mouthfeel? Yeah, mousefeel? You feel the mice? No, mouthfeel. What type of? He said, yes. Would you prefer the 80% butterfat and what kind of cacao beans? And how would you like it aged? And do you have a particular lineage that you prefer? And I'm going, wait. I'm in deep water here. It's just like, I wanted some chocolate, And he's going, if you go down the street, I think they sell some Hershey's. You can buy plenty, bags of it, just down the street, And my hostess, he's blushing because he knew that I knew nothing about, this is chocolate country, right? Belgian chocolate is like, Chateau Pierre Jean Lafitte, 1966. They do chocolate, you know, we have no idea the way they do chocolate. They do chocolate at this level that I can't imagine. And so Mr. Zhang said, well, thank you very much. He said, I'll be back next week because we'll talk. And the proprietor said, yes, good, fine. Out. We were in and out of it about 5 minutes, you know. And I said, that chocolate there in the display case, how much was that? He said, oh, that's probably $250. And if that depends on how much you want, you know. So, but $250 for, you know, 6. And so I said, it really was as expensive as wine. And this is, you know, we don't know. So that's the idea. Dharmas aren't to blame. Don't blame the dharmas. It's what we people do to them, right? We people get attached to them, or we hate them, or we just identify with them. All along, wu wo, wu ren, wu shou ming. There's no self there. What's there's a trait that we have. It's called anthropomorphizing. We project human qualities into stuff, right? My 1965 Volkswagen bus was the Blue Max. I painted him. I did his valves. I did his brakes. Painted it blue. It was not the window bus. It was the one before the window bus. A primo 1965 VW bus. That was in the Arlo Guthrie days, and I was going through my Arlo Guthrie phase, right? Driving my VW bus. It was had a personality, completely did. I related to it. It was a being, you know. And the Blue Max had his bad days, you know. And we anthropomorphize our pets. We project humanity onto poor creatures, you know. We identify with our Starbucks drinks, right? Personalize your drink. There's an app for it, right? You can punch the button and it's ready when you arrive, and you pay for it with your phone because why? That's my drink. It's the way I like it. You know, I'm loving it. So we do that. We project self onto inanimate things. Our identity is attached to the material world and to relationships. Boy, oh boy, how could she say that to me? I can't believe he said that. You know, we completely project onto our world, and the Buddha is saying, yeah, I understand that, but guess what? Fundamentally, there's no self there. Can you stand it the way it is? And in his meditation, the Buddha saw that to the reaches of the universe, there's not a single thing that has any permanent selfhood in it at all, including this thing, right? Nothing. There is only earth, air, fire, and water interacting with consciousness that ultimately comes apart, but then comes back together based on our habits. And the word that we're looking for is karma. Karma is either wholesome or unwholesome, but it's just doing. The root of the word karma is to do, the verb to do. K-R, kur, Sanskrit. It just means action. So we take these innocent elements and we act on them, grab them, hate them, buy them, sell them, right? Destroy them, and over time, they become our world. The sutra, in an earlier part of the sutra, there's a chapter that talks about the formation of worlds. And it goes into great detail about where a world comes from. The world comes from people doing stuff to innocent dharmas. Dharmas aren't to blame. We do it, and a world comes into being. And this is my mom. Why? Because we've interacted so many times. This is my enemy because, well, I hurt them bad last time and now they come back. And this is my benefactor because I was good to them in the past and now they're helping me out. Right? It's habit. Dharmas aren't to blame. Wu wo, wu ren, wu shou ming. Fundamentally, you cannot find anything through analysis, looking carefully, in the world that has any permanent identity, whereby you can know it and that's it. No, you reduce it. And so I really like this. I mean, it's cold, it's kind of scary because it's impersonal, but it's fair. And for my money, it's clear seeing. You know, this is scientific in the sense that you're looking at it. You're trying your best to understand what it is. That's nice. Where is there faith in this? Believe it because I say? Not a bit. The Buddha says, you don't have to believe it. I'm telling you what I saw. Take it or this is, you know, I'm reporting because I'd like you to wake up to it if you choose to, but it's, you don't have to buy it from me. I'm not selling it. The Buddha gets no perks if you believe it, right? He's saying, yeah, that's how it is. How about that? That's interesting, isn't it? So that's why we spend time on a Saturday night. Some of us because of a birthday, others, maybe having been here once, you'll come back. Who knows? But in a variety of languages, we, using contemporary, occasionally political analogies, we open up these texts and see if the Buddha can actually speak English, or Vietnamese, or Chinese. All right, let's turn over to page 58. We're done. We're at the end of our time here. But let's see, page 58, 59. First, second, the next two paragraphs are also analysis and the Bodhisattva's fairly harsh, bracing description of what living beings do. Then the verses talk about his titles, and then we get down to the last paragraph and then over to page 60, 61. We get to a place that I wish we had been able to get to tonight because it's so much fun. It's talking about the Bodhisattva on the fifth ground and what he or she is able to do. By golly, that's what I say I wish I had been there to explain, because it's, for anybody who's interested in education, it's very powerful. It's describing the fundamentals of liberal arts education for the traditional world. It's called the Wu Ming Xue, the Panchavidya, the 5 categories of liberal education. And we'll get there and in a couple weeks, and we'll go into it. It's fascinating. You know, we're Dharma Realm Buddhist University in our extension program and Sangha Lady training program, etc., very much involved in education. And the fifth ground, the fifth stage, is where we find out what in the Buddha's time was considered an educated person. So it's very neat. We'll get there. Okay, we're going to transfer the merit. And on that same sheet of paper that you had here, flip it over and you've got the dedication of merit right here. Do you all have that? This is interactive. If you don't know the tune, just use your mind and send out a wish for goodness. Think of those poor Republican Congress people who have to be suffering a lot to be in such denial that there's anything wrong. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Oh, it's all right. It's been this way before. It's fine. It's just an Obama plot to ruin America. Global warming, climate change. That's a democratic agenda. You know, you go, oh man, wake up. What about your children? Think about, you have any kids? What about your kids? You're giving them a lot with water standing, you know. You see the sculpture? There was this wonderful sculpture. I saw this on Facebook. It's a sculpture, I think it was Dutch. I think it was a Dutch sculptor. It showed these 10 heads, well-dressed men, standing, talking to each other with water up to their necks. They're standing there obviously debating and arguing, and the water is up to their necks. It's called Politicians Denying Climate Change. Finally waking up to climate change, is that how it went? Yeah. And they were standing there with the water, right, and they're still, I think it's probably a political plot, you know, political agenda. That's a lot of suffering. It's not joyful to close your senses against, to go back to sleep, to turn over and go back to sleep. We really want to wake up. So, dedicate merit. May they quickly awake. May their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and joy. Here we go. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Have you got your songbook? Turn to page 70 there. We have sung this once or twice, but maybe you don't remember. You know, in the midst of stuff, mind you, the Buddha sees that there's no self in dharmas, right? But that doesn't mean he has to radically reject all stuff. He still lives in the midst of things, but how you can live skillfully or less skillfully. So here's an idea. This came from my mother's mantra that her mother taught her during the Depression. And if you had something, my mother is the youngest daughter amid 3 daughters and 2 brothers, or three sisters and 2 brothers. She's the youngest kid, and she said she never had her own dress until high school. Until she was 16, every piece of clothing she wore had been handed down from her older sisters. Why? There wasn't any. You couldn't just go buy one. There wasn't one. So you used it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. Right? David, did you ever hear that? Was that like something that your parents echoed? Roberto? Anybody? Oh, yes. it's until it's really used up, and then you turn it into something else. You make it a chair seat or a lining for something else. So yeah, that's the mantra. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. We might be coming to this time. I own it, it owns me. Freedom in simplicity. I'm going to put a capo on, raise the... Some dharmas are helpful, right? This is a particularly helpful dharma. Is there any self in there? Are you kidding me? No. There we go. There was always a new one. I was always behind. Another upgrade, but no peace of mind. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. I own it, it owns me. Freedom in simplicity. How much is enough? Is it more than I need? The heart of contentment, poisoned by greed. My only satisfaction comes when I give stuff away. Make yourself happy if you let it go today. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. I own it, it owns me. Freedom in simplicity. Earth, water, fire, and air. In every dharma, every conditioned dharma, everywhere. A magic soul lives within, whatever shape our body's in. We all share this makeup, gone when we die and break up. All the stuff I buy and stash, a puff of wind, a heap of ash. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. I own it, it owns me. Freedom in simplicity. You can join me in that chorus, right? Here we go. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Helpful mantra. I own it, it owns me. Freedom in simplicity. You wear it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. I own it, it owns me. Freedom in simplicity. There you go. That's a helpful mantra from the Great Depression. Who knows? We might, well, probably not, but stuff is valuable. We were on the freeway trying to get around a yacht the other day, coming back from the airport. I just gotten off the airplane, and there was this huge, huge yacht heading into San Francisco on 101 going north. And I thought, okay, sign of the times. Yacht makers are in the blue chips at the moment because the 1% have a lot of money to buy stuff. Okay, we're going to quickly switch over to the screen and the projector because I want to share with you some movie clips. what I'm going to show you is more pictures of my bird that I related to. I was just in Australia, as some of you know, and one of the things that happened to me was I spent not much time with people and a lot of time with a bird. This is a kookaburra who was I was in his territory. It's the way to think about it. And I would see 2 or 3 people a day when I wasn't teaching school. The nuns who were resident there, and my Dharma friend Sam, who lives in the house behind. But in terms of quality time, certainly I spent more time with this guy. And here he is. His name is Ali. He's a kookaburra. And he picked us out. He was delightfully unafraid of people. And he flew in and landed on the rail. He kind of stared at us. And so we were thrilled. You know, this is a wild member of the kingfisher family. Kookaburras, look at his beak. He's a snake eater. He can eat a snake longer than his body. He's just about as tall as this laptop. He's about this big, perching on the railing. And he is a charming fellow. You can just see this is a personable guy. And so my friend Sam said, oh, you know, maybe we could get him some veggie ham. Because veggie ham is kind of got the texture of meat. And for sure, we're not going to feed him meat, you know. There we are. So turns out veggie ham was just the thing. He really liked it. But I'm showing you in this progression of videos how a bird gradually warms up to the idea that people can benefit him, you know. Here he is. We feed him. He's checking us out. Take a look here. It's like doing his bird best to figure us out. Okay, yeah. Look, a little chubby there. There you go. Okay, yeah. Bird beak. And so bit by bit, he kind of got used to people and the notion that we might like have some stuff he likes. He was hoping. And now kookaburras are very family-oriented birds. They live in groups, and the uncles will sit on the eggs if mom has to go feed. They take turns raising their kids. And you can see now, on one hand, he's a bird, right? And birds, he's a wild creature. But on the other hand, he has certain cautions. This particular video shows you. I've just put a piece of veggie ham on the railing. There it is. Okay, take a look. Here's the veggie ham. Right there. All right? Now, Ali, notice, has this laser-like focus on this. Yeah. Okay, food has now been introduced into the equation, right? And yet, he's a little cautious, and he's like, I'm not sure. He's waiting for permission, right? He's looking. Do I dare? That ham's looking good. But he's got some restraint.
It's all yours.
I said, it's all yours. Look at him. He's on hold mode, right? But his eye is on that ham. Okay, yes. Oh, and he raises his crest up. Okay, let's see that again. We got to see that again. Here he goes. Oh, too quick. Here we go. Yep. There. Oh, down it goes. We'll find out. Well, I don't know. We talked about that. Every time he eats, he puffs up his crown. Maybe. Could be. Yeah, fuel gauge, right. He fills up, yeah. When he shows up in the morning, and he lands on the railing every morning, he's in his sleep mode, and he's really big. The feathers puff out, and I think it keeps him warm. I think that's how they stay warm, as they increase their circumference. So, okay, so here we go. Now, clearly, Ali is getting into the idea, right? This is the next day. Hi. What do you got for me? Whoa. Yeah. Okay, down it goes. Yummy. Like that veggie ham. And we would feed him other stuff like bread, and nope, he didn't want that. And you know, there's, like I said last week when you first saw this, we're completely aware of the notion. Doesn't he have kind eyes? He doesn't have like owl raptor eyes. His eyes are still warm. It's not necessarily a good thing for people to feed wild creatures, because if they get used to us feeding them and then we're not there and he flies up to some other person who might be totally freaked out by this large wild bird with a big beak showing up on their knee, you know. So anyway, so now we've switched formats. That was all done with the iPhone. This is done with another camera. By this time, he's very friendly. Namo Omitofo. Good bird. Does anybody see the dinosaur in him? These are ancestors of dinosaurs. We're teaching him to recite the Buddha's name. Of course we are. What's that? Touching the earth with one claw, yeah, talon, yeah.
Would you like another piece? I know you would.
All right. So this is, you get a chance to look at my residence here. I was trying to get him acclimated to a whistle. I have an Irish. That was the feeding signal. It didn't seem to work very well.
Here's a big...
Yeah, so we got, let's see, here we go. There we go. Big piece of ham. Watch this one go down. Oh, yeah. Gulp. Oh, it's all gone. More? Right there. Put it right there. Put your ham where your flute is. Okay, yeah. All right. Good kookaburra. Now, you also need to, here I am, talking with him. There we go.
Yes. There you are. Ready? Here you go, buddy. Isn't that good? Good ham, huh?
More? Right there.
Posing for the camera. You're so handsome.
Okay, you got to see this bird hop. This is really cute. Here he goes. No, 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 no. Hopping bird. There you go. There you go.
So handsome. You're photogenic. Good looking bird. Okay, one more piece. You ready?
All right. Now, okay, so the last one is Ali gets pretty used to us. And I start to get him to land on my knee. I think I have one of those. I didn't include it in this one. Let's see. I showed it to you last week, and I have the scars to prove it, because here he is. So I started putting a towel on my leg, because, not so much because his claws were digging in, but they were, but because my pants leg wasn't stable for him. And he wanted something stable, so I put a towel down, and that was stable. The next step was to get him to land on my hand. And so here's the last one. And because he's like getting so used to us, now the bird, okay, the bird is right, where is Ali? He's right, let's see here. See if we can, here. Where is he? Okay, got it. There we go. All right, ready? He's over here on the right. Here he is right here. Okay, you can't quite see him. So Sam is holding the camera. And Sam says, better be careful, better watch your food. I had that silver plate with about 4 pieces of veggie ham, and foolish me, right? Sam says, better hide your food. Okay, so here comes the bird. Okay, watch here. There he is. Boom. There's the veggie ham on my hand. And that's good, but guess what? Oh, yeah!
Guess what?
Oops. So we got to see that in slow-mo. There we go. Yo, little bit of familiarity there. Give him an inch and he takes a yard. Okay, check this out. Okay, motivated bird. One big wing, one swoop of his wings. No, 2, because he has to back. One is to propel himself and one is to slow himself down, right? So there's the forward, and there's the back. There's the landing. So he grabs that one, lands on my hand. Down goes that one. Gulp. And I think I'll help myself. Oh, another big, whoa. Grabs it. He sure did. He's quick. And away he goes. Zoom. That's Ali. Mm-hmm. You think so? Maybe so. Pretty funny. So people said that, let's see, find it. The number one picture, my number one Facebook picture in terms of likes is this one. Right now we've got 364 likes on that one. That's a. So here's the towel that I put on my leg, so he would have a sturdier place to land. So. Okay, now what is that? I'm gonna. Let's get the lights back on, and I'll hit this guy. That worked. Did it go off yet? Hello? No? How are we doing? So the question is, what is the relationship between, humans and animals? And anybody who has a pet knows what that's like. The thrill for me was 2 years ago when I first arrived, 3 years ago. No, when I first arrived in Australia, I'd heard about kookaburras, because why? Everybody in America grew up singing, "Kookaburra up in the old gum tree." Well, they really do. And they laugh, laugh, kookaburra gay your laugh. Did you hear that in Holland? No? Sam, did you hear that in Connecticut? No? You didn't learn that? Second grade? Okay. So the song about the kookaburra. And so when I first arrived in Australia, sure enough, right in our tree outside, twice a day, in the morning and evening, we heard this maniacal laugh. Here, you got to hear it. Can't tease you without letting you hear it. And the laugh is just stunning in its volume and distinction. It's a distinct sound that only kookaburras make. And I'd heard about them. They were kind of mythological, And so sure enough, here was a kookaburra wanting to talk to me, getting close, unafraid. Twice a day. That's Ali and his family, actually. I recorded that. So, okay. And people, although it's a bird, that is to say, equally no self, no others, no lifespan, a set of random conditioned dharmas, still there's something inside that bird that animates it. And he wanted a relationship with me. Mind you, it was based on veggie ham, but I'll take it. Why not? And so for me, it was the thrill of, what does that bird open? It's a connection with an entire realm. And the animals and the birds of Australia, because it's this isolated island that's been down there forever, they're unique animals, and they carry you back tens of thousands, if not millions of years. And there it is. And, Ali and his friends will be in those trees long after we're gone. So we get to, our circles interact just a little bit. And there's the power of myth, the power of the founding stories of our tribe is connected there. So that was a thrill. And then to discover he's got all these endearing traits. He's a really lovable bird, and unless you're a snake, in which case, he's your end and you're his lunch. But all the same, that's a thrill to have this guy. And Sam, who is coming here in August, is keeping the feeding going a couple times a week as he can. So Ali is not dependent on. You don't want the bird to become dependent, because then he'll go look for other people who might not want him around and it could harm him. But still, we had that connection. So hard not to project into him, anthropomorphize the bird, and make him more than he is. But as he is, he's great. Next week, I'm going to show you a movie of our local wallabies. Wallabies are small kangaroos, this big. And as soon as I left, the local wallaby showed up. I didn't get to see him this visit, but he's there now. Maybe the grass is tall enough. And Sam got some good movies of them. So you got to bring them all back next week, Michael. Just look at the pictures, stories of the wallabies. All right. Let's see. 10,000 Buddhas bowing is going on another 3 or 4 days. Tuesday night is Tiance, right? Correct? This coming Tuesday night, 7:30 at Tiance Tea Shop on 4th Street in Berkeley. We're going to do our tea and dharma, and I'll be telling stories, singing songs, drinking wonderful tea. Right on 4th Street, come take a look, join in. Free of charge, and you're more than welcome. Then the other thing coming up is our Buddha Root Farm camp in the Oregon mountains on the coast near Reedsport. If for no other reason, come to enjoy nature there. It's pure. This is pristine. Very few human beings have been out on Turtle Mountain. And this is, talk about myth, this is a place where Master Hua says the turtle of Turtle Island, which is a Native American name for our continent, has taken refuge. So what do you do with that? You know, you can believe it. It's a pristine, it's been clear-cut once upon a time, but after they cut the trees down, they moved on. People didn't live there. They couldn't after they desecrated it. So anyway, it's grown up again, and we're trying to be custodians responsible for this place. And the spirits there are very benign. So it's a camping experience. You're outdoors, but it's quite wonderful. And the food is great, the dharma is good, and nature is at its finest. So please do go to oregon.berkeleymonastery.org. That's the website, Oregon, the state, .berkeleymonastery.org. And you have to register because we need to know how many cars, how much food to prepare. But if you have any questions, be sure to ask anybody. Sandy, you want to raise your hand? Nam, can you raise your hand over here? Good. These are folks who know about the retreat and can fill you in. And Alice won't be able to make it this time. Things to do. But Tina's coming. So, good. And Angela's coming. And yeah, should be good. Connie's coming. Michael? Yeah. Good. Bring the family. But if the family comes, be ready for a camp out. You know, you got to bring your hiking boots. Okay, I think that's it. See you next week. We're going to stand up and bow to the Buddhas. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Fang Guang